But I enjoyed being in Minneapolis as well, and those 2 years were really important for me as well because those were the first 2 years of my teaching, and I taught undergraduate and graduates, and that was really really interesting. And my book came out, and I was giving readings in different places. It was an interesting time. But it was a strange feeling because the very first story that I remember it very vividly in the very first undergraduate workshop. I came there, and the first story that we were discussing opened with a sentence: "In the twilight of his life, pushing 40, John finally realized that his whole life had been one huge mistake." That's the first sentence.
Yikes.
Yeah, so in the twilight of his life, pushing 40.
So an 18-year-old.
Yeah. And of course, just dealing with very, very young people writing fiction, of course, it's 18-year-olds, right? They write about themselves, essentially, and their feelings. But with graduate program there was very, very strong. And there I found some very strong students and some really strong community. And then that was where I spent a lot of time with Professor Novakovich, my colleague here, who was also there at that time, not teaching there, but being in Minneapolis, and then finding a job of 4 hours north of Minneapolis, and actually close to Winnipeg, which is Fargo and Moorhead. And at some point, I'll tell you how we got tired of life in Minnesota, and we decided to go to Canada, and we went to Winnipeg, and we thought, well, this is so European. We went to Benihana.
You thought Winnipeg was European.
Very European. We went to a coffee shop where everybody wore black, this kind of big coffee shop with big bags of beans, this kind of things. You probably know it because I think the people from Winnipeg kind of know that. And all the waiters and waitresses were like all black, and all of it looked very, very European.
It's one of our 2 cafes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of it looked very European. Yeah. So we walked around, and then we went to Benihana, which is Japanese place. Yeah. So, yeah. And on the way back, we spent whole day in Winnipeg just doing nothing, just hanging around. Just appreciating the fact that we were in a foreign country. And when we went back, and we were just in my car, which is like beat up old Ford, and it's 2 a.m, and we're crossing into Minnesota.
Right.
And the customs officer, she was the only one there. It's 2 a.m. It's like brightly lit cube there on the wall there, a portrait of George W. Bush and George Bush, and she gets out yawning, and she just sees 2 strange guys, basically both speaking with some accents, and she looked through the trunk of my car. There is nothing, and then she's just like, "So what do you do?" I said, "I teach creative writing at the University of Minnesota." And she asks Iossel, "So what do you do?" "I teach creative writing at the University of Minnesota, Moorhead." I said, "Where were you born?" I said, "I'm in Russia," in Croatia. I said, like, "Don't we have Americans to teach creative writing?" I said, "Well, apparently not, lady. Why are you not teaching?" For instance, you could be doing that
instead. They don't want you being the border patrol.
Instead of sleeping here at 2 a.m, but in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Well, anyways, but I remember it for very don't we have Americans to do that? Well, guess what? We're Americans.